Hi everyone, today we are talking about how to use the Pythagorean theorem to solve word problems and also to find distance between 2 points. As a reminder, you do not need to write down everything that we'll cover in this video, but be sure to jot down important information and at least one example of each type of problem that we'll cover. Also remember that you can pause to jot down important notes, rewind to view information again, and fast forward if you think you got it, but don't fast forward too much that you miss out on something important. So real quickly, Pythagorean theorem, again, is only for right triangles, and that's the key. In a right triangle, you have your legs. Those are your two shorter sides. They are right next to your right angle. And then you have your hypotenuse, which is across. That's your longest side, and that's your C. So Pythagorean theorem says that a squared plus b squared should equal to c squared if you have a right triangle. The only steps you'll really need to know today is how to calculate the distance between 2 points. So in this problem, they'll give you 2 points, and it's going to be a slanted line if you were to draw a line to connect those 2 points. But they want to know what is the actual length. What's the distance between those 2 points? If it were a horizontal or vertical line, like going across or up and down, obviously you can just count the units, right? But since it's a slanted line, you're going to have to use Pythagorean theorem because slanted lines you can't really tell what the distance is because you don't have the units lined up. So after you draw a line to connect the 2 points, you're going to create your own right triangle. So for this yellow line here, I could create a right triangle this way, or I could have done it up on top, but it's going to give you the same measurements for the legs. So it really doesn't matter what your triangle looks like as long as it is connecting those 2 points on that line. Then you're going to use the Pythagorean theorem to calculate the missing hypotenuse, C. It's always going to be the hypotenuse because it's always going to be across from the right angle because these two make a right angle. And you can count to figure out your legs. This one is 4 units long, and this one is 7 units long by counting. And then you'll just use the Pythagorean theorem and calculate C. Make sure this is in your notebook, and we're going to work on some examples. All right, so with Pythagorean theorem word problems, it's just that. They're going to be word problems where you have to use Pythagorean theorem. So here's your typical Pythagorean theorem word problem. Meg lives in Indianapolis and wants to visit her mom in Lima. How many more kilometers would Meg drive if she drove to Lima through Dayton? So they're saying compared to just going straight across from Indianapolis to Lima, let's say she stopped at Dayton first and then drove up to Lima. How much longer would it take? How many more kilometers would that take her? Pause the video and try it on your own first. Okay, so that means in this problem we need to calculate 2 different routes. One is from Indianapolis to Lima, and the other is from Indianapolis to Dayton, and then to Lima. Indianapolis to Lima, it already says it's 173 kilometers. Right here, that distance. From Indianapolis to Dayton, it's 165 kilometers, and we're not sure how much it is from Dayton to Lima. So that's what we do need to figure out. Once we do, we're going to add those two together, this route over here. So I'm going to need to use the Pythagorean theorem, and I'll see that this is the hypotenuse across from the right angle, and I can just label this as A and B, and I will calculate what that missing side is. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A is 165 squared, b squared is by itself, and c squared is 173 oops, not cubed, squared, only 2 times. In my calculator, I'm going to figure out what 165 times 165 is. That is a huge number. I had to do it twice just to make sure. 27,225. That's huge. Plus b squared equals 173 times 173, also a huge number, 29,929. And to calculate this, or figure out b, I will need to subtract this number on both sides so that it cancels on the left-hand side. And in my calculator, after I perform that subtraction, I have 2,704. That's going to equal to b squared. So to calculate b by itself, I need to square root both sides. And then I will get b equals whatever the square root of that is. And that is 52. They gave us a pretty number, so that's good. So that means x is equal to 52. So instead of x, we're adding 52. Indianapolis to Dayton is 165 kilometers. Add that to 52 kilometers to get to Lima, and we have 217 kilometers. So how many more kilometers will Meg drive? That means you have to subtract, and you get 44 kilometers more. It's going to take her an extra 44 kilometers if she makes a detour and visits Dayton first. So there's a lot of steps involved in this problem. A lot of it deals with the question itself, knowing what exactly you're doing. You're not just calculating the missing side, the distance from Dayton to Lima. You're figuring out how many more kilometers she'll have to drive. So you do have to add it up and then subtract the other route. Let's do one more of these. So in this problem, Joel is mailing a large envelope. There's the picture of the envelope to his cousin. The envelope has pictures inside, so he doesn't want to bend it. The mail slot has the dimensions shown. Oh, so this is not the envelope. This is the mail slot. The dotted line shows the widest part of the slot. What is the maximum width of the mail slot? Okay, so I see what's going on. Joel basically has a very large envelope, and he's thinking, well, it doesn't fit long ways, right? If he puts the envelope in this way, it's not going to fit. He's going to have to smush it, and he has some pictures inside that he doesn't want to bend. So he probably remembered, oh, well, this, if I put it in slanted ways, then it'll probably fit. And that's going to be a hypotenuse. Remember, the hypotenuse is the longest side. So when they ask what's the maximum width of the mail slot, they basically want this right here, because hypotenuse is the longest side of a right triangle. Pause the video and calculate that on your own first. All right, so we're missing C. We have A and B. This is pretty straightforward. It looks like once we figure out C, the missing side, we will get the answer. 24 squared, I need to do in my calculator. That's 576. When I add that to 49, I get 625. To calculate that, I need to find the square root of both sides. So C equals 2, the square root is 625, which is 25 centimeters. So it is longer if he puts it in slanted, and the maximum width will be 25 centimeters. So he's going to want to find an envelope that is 25 centimeters, well, anywhere between 24 and 25, because he already knows it won't fit a long ways in. Okay, and then the last type of problem we're going to go over is the distance problem, distance between 2 points. So like we said, you're going to connect the ends of that line to create a right triangle and then solve for your hypotenuse. So go ahead and pause the video and try it on your own first. Okay, so you can draw a triangle this way, or you could have drawn it this way up here. Doesn't matter. I'm gonna go with the red version. Okay, you do want to make sure that it creates an L so that you have a right triangle. If you make it slanted for some reason, like this, that's not going to be a right angle over here. So be careful there. This is the only situation where you're creating your own right triangle, so you have to be careful that you actually create a right triangle. It's happened before. So across from your right angle is your hypotenuse. Doesn't matter what these two are. We don't have this length, so that's what we're looking for. For your legs, we can count. So this is 3 units. And this right here is 1, 2, 3, 4 units. You should already know from a previous lesson that the answer will be 5 because it's a 3, 4, 5 triangle. But in case you don't, you can always put it into your formula. A squared is 4 squared, B squared is 3 squared, should equal to C squared. 4 squared is 16, 3 squared is 9. Add those together, you get 25. To figure out C by itself, you're going to square root both sides, and you end up with 5 as the square root of 25. So you get 5 units for the answer. There you go. So that's what we mean by connecting those two ends of your line to create a right triangle. And then you're just solving for the missing side, your hypotenuse, as always. Let me know if you have questions as you work on these problems, and I'll see you in class.